Before I begin with the prepared remarks, let me first acknowledge our host, Vice Admiral Anne Rondeau. I've had the honor and privilege of knowing her for a number of years now. And at U.S. Transportation Command and now here at the National Defense University, she has demonstrated truly unwavering courage and conviction, both personally and professionally. And our nation's armed forces, a whole generation of senior leaders, are better off because of you. Thanks for helping us all become stronger every day. Now, some of you might be wondering, what in the world is a military commander, the commander of United States Africa Command, talking in the morning in Washington, D.C. at a food security conference? And I'll admit to you that same thought crossed my mind when the wonderful staff said, "Hey, Admiral Rondeau wants you to go do this." And those of you who know her know that she doesn't take no very well. So you just resign yourself to the fact that that's what she wants to do. We're going to go ahead and do it, and you got to figure out what that means. But after a while, it started to make more sense to me as I thought about this. And we should start just stating it very plainly that Africa Command plays only a limited role in supporting specific food security initiatives. Our larger efforts to promote security in Africa are intended more so to complement the efforts of others, the U.S. Agency for International Development, the State Department, and other civilian agencies, including international organizations and non-governmental organizations, all of which have more prominent roles in the areas of development and food security. I think, though, as I thought through this process, we can all agree that the specific issue of food security and overall stability are inextricably linked. The destabilizing effects resulting from food insecurity include population displacement, constraints and limitations to development, and potential conflict over scarce resources. The United States, and thusly the United States military, and has a significant interest in supporting stability and security efforts across the continent of Africa. And at U.S. Africa Command, we're focused on deterring or defeating transnational threats and contributing to a security environment that is conducive to good governance and development. Before we turn to the first panel in just a few moments, I'd like to talk with you a little bit specifically about U.S. Africa Command, the delicate balance between security, food security, and stability in the Horn of Africa, as well as the role of U.S. Africa Command and the role that we play in promoting regional security in the Horn of Africa, our area of specific attention this morning. As one of 6 U.S. military geographic combatant commands, the role of U.S. Africa Command is simply to protect and to advance the national security interests of our country. We focus on protecting America, Americans, and American interests from threats that may emerge in Africa. We do this primarily by strengthening the defense capabilities of our African partners, and as well as African regional organizations. And of course, when directed by our president, we are ready to conduct military operations in order to defeat or deter transnational threats. Everything that we do at U.S. Africa Command is centered on 2 overarching principles. The first is readily apparent to you, and that is that a safe, stable, secure Africa is in the best interest not only of the African states, but of the United States as well. The second principle, which was reinforced by President Obama in a speech he gave in Accra in 2009, is that in the long run, it is Africans who will be best able to address African security challenges. Those 2 overarching principles are important to us, and we try to abide by those as we conduct all of our activities across the continent. Our mission is simply to advance the security interests of the United States and those of our African partners. And we do so through operations, exercises, and security cooperation activities. A very important element of what we do is called building partner capacity. By that I mean by working by, with, and through our African partners, we strengthen their capabilities and deepen strategic relationships in a cost-efficient manner that requires only a very light footprint of U.S. military boots on the ground. We must, however, always be prepared to conduct a full range of military operations, and operations last year in Libya are one example of that. But the full range of operations also means we must prepare for potential humanitarian and disaster relief operations as well. There have been and certainly will continue to be situations in which the civilian agencies of our government or the combined efforts of non-governmental organizations and international organizations cannot fully meet the requirements in large-scale relief operations. I do understand the angst and concern that oftentimes accompanies the employment of American military capabilities in these situations. But it is my sense that we've not always fully taken advantage of the range of U.S. military support. We have the ability to help people and to prevent further deterioration of humanitarian emergencies. And I think we have a role in prevention and preparation, not only in response to humanitarian crises. In the area of defense sector development and capacity building, our efforts are undertaken in close collaboration with other U.S. government agencies, as well as with international partners. In the Horn of Africa, many of our activities are conducted through the Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa, CJTF-HOA, the acronym that many of you have heard before, based at Camp Lemonnier, Djibouti, our only enduring presence on the African continent. CJTF-HOA conducts operations to enhance partner nation capacity to dissuade conflict and protect U.S. and coalition interests. U.S. African Command's headquarters team, based in Stuttgart, reflects the talents, expertise, and capabilities from across the U.S. government. We have personnel from 13 other U.S. government departments and agencies serving in leadership, management, and staff positions. Some of the agencies represented in our headquarters are the Departments of State, Agriculture, Commerce, Homeland Security, including the Coast Guard, and of course, USAID and OFTA. Our most senior non-Department of Defense officials are two career senior Foreign Service officers, Ambassador Tony Holmes, who serves as my deputy for civil military activities, and Ambassador Helen Laline, our director for outreach. And joining us this morning, Mr. Mark White, on loan, if you will, from USAID, serves as our senior development advisor. Supporting humanitarian assistance and food security are good examples of areas in which our interagency staff bring invaluable expertise to help ensure that our efforts complement those of other U.S. government agencies. Because food emergencies are complex humanitarian crises, often rooted in poverty, or tied to climate change, or even to political issues with both short and long-term impacts, the U.S. military offers just one facet of U.S. support to humanitarian efforts in the Horn of Africa. It really does take a whole-of-government approach and a regional approach to achieve the desired outcome, which is ultimately saving lives and the establishment of stability and security in the region. I mentioned that our efforts include preparation as well as response. And let me provide a few examples. One of our most effective means of supporting humanitarian assistance and food security is through training African partners in crisis response. In July of last year, we teamed up with the World Food Program, the World Health Organization, and a host of other international organizations in Dakar, Senegal. This exercise brought together representatives from across the African continent to practice responding to a simulated large-scale regional pandemic. U.S. Africa Command personnel provided training and technical support for both military and civilian disaster planners. The capabilities and relationships built through this exercise are already helping us enhance regional response to future complex emergencies. In another partnership event held last summer, we sent a team of veterinary health care experts to Uganda to team up with the Ugandan Ministry of Livestock to treat thousands of animals during what we call a Veterinary Civil Action Program, or VetCAP. This program took veterinary experts from Uganda and U.S. Africa Command to remote villages in northern Uganda to treat livestock and train local herdsmen in animal care. In only 6 days, over 30,000 animals were treated. One of our more unique efforts is in finding ways to help African militaries become more self-sustaining. In addition to supporting defense institutional strengthening, We've worked with the Department of State and the Norman Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture at Texas A&M University to train soldiers from the Democratic Republic of Congo in sustainable agriculture farming techniques. Due to a lack of resources, oftentimes Congolese soldiers, while conducting operations, find themselves in need of food. And they'll often pillage local farms or steal food from the local community in order to sustain their operations. Obviously an undesirable outcome. The Borlaug Institute joined with US Africa Command's training program with the Congolese Infantry Battalion to train and equip a company of soldier farmers who can provide a regular supply of food to sustain their battalion. As of late last year, the 60-man agriculture company established a farm that includes pigs, cattle, tilapia, fields of crops, especially cassava, enough to feed the local garrison for many, many months. It's a good pilot, and we're finding interest from across the region, not just within the Democratic Republic of Congo. These kinds of military programs support and complement broader food security and development initiatives led by the U.S. Agency for International Development, as well as other civilian agencies. But there's lots of challenges to food security. We've seen over the last few years severe environmental challenges that have worsened food emergencies in the Horn of Africa. Lack of rain has led to the worst drought conditions in Somalia and Ethiopia since the 1950s, affecting the lives of more than 13 million in the region. Conflict and drought have sent hundreds of thousands of Somalis over the borders into Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Kenya, placing an enormous burden on neighboring governments and aid agencies to deliver the services to displaced populations and straining the capacities of critical security partners. Deforestation is an effect. An estimated over 900 square miles per year is being deforested. This has great impact on the pastoral communities who depend on trees for energy, construction, agriculture, and food. There are undeniable linkages, I think, between our responses to food emergencies, food security, and our broader security and stability objectives in the Horn of Africa. Climate change and other environmental challenges are likely to increase the severity and frequency of food emergencies in the Horn unless the international community works together to increase the sustainability of regional and global food supplies. Particularly in the Horn of Africa, maritime security impacts overall food security. Many of Africa's threats are maritime-based, and the waters off the Horn of Africa present a number of concerns. Piracy makes trade and investment in Africa more risky, and illicit trafficking undermines good governance and development. Limited local maritime security has led to the largely uncontrolled maritime landscape that we see today. Due to the geographic location of Somalia and the importance of the Gulf of Aden as a strategic choke point, the lack of maritime security is not just an African concern, but it is truly an international concern. Another key consequence of maritime insecurity is the prevalence of illegal fishing in the waters off East Africa. This obviously affects economic development and it exacerbates food security challenges. Fishing is an important economic and sustainment activity in the Horn of Africa. Fish provides up to 10% of the calories and dietary protein in some East African countries. Somalia has the longest coastline of any continental African country, over 3,000 kilometers. And the absence of effective fishery enforcement has contributed to the diminishment of Somalia's fishing trade, and some would argue that that has been a primary contributor to piracy. For a region tied to fishing activities for sustainment and trade, maritime security is unquestionably important. The Secretary General of the United Nations reported in 2010 that piracy has had an immense impact on the economies of East Africa and also the wider world. International trade routes are threatened, as well as the trade of goods in the region. And these effects are seen in altered trade routes, increased insurance premiums, and cargo shippers using safer ports in other countries to move their goods, all leading to increased costs to the East African consumer. As an example, the Kenyan Shippers Council has estimated that piracy increases the cost of imports by over $23 million per month and exports by almost $10 million per month. These costs are redirected to Kenyan consumers and are estimated to push up the price of imported goods by at least 10%. For countries like Somalia, where over half of the food consumed is imported, food price inflation has had a serious economic impact. One Somali food importer claimed that in 2010, piracy had caused the price of a 50-kilo bag of wheat flour to rise from $18 to $22 in just 1 month. Reduced humanitarian aid, threatened fishing, and high food inflation in nations that are already considered food insecure leads to unrest, conflict, and instability. As the commander of U.S. Africa Command, I believe that maintaining security and stability in the Horn of Africa is beneficial not only to the people of the region, but also to the United States and to the broader international community. Foreign assistance in the form of military cooperation has been and will continue to be an important tool in supporting peace and stability in East Africa. But it must be part of a whole-of-government approach that employs all the tools of our national power, drawing from the diplomatic, development, and defense sectors. You'll hear a lot more about this from the panelists throughout the day. The comprehensive approaches required to meet food security and other security and stability challenges in Africa require open dialogue, strong collaboration, and innovative and imaginative thinking. And I appreciate the opportunity to participate in today's forum and look forward to hearing your perspectives on the complex challenge of food security. Let me leave you with a closing thought. Tomorrow, March 9th, will mark 1 year to the day since I had the great opportunity and privilege of assuming command from my friend and mentor, General Kip Ward. It's been a pretty interesting first year. I think so far I've been to 31 of the 54 nations in Africa. And a year into this, I would describe myself as being at the point of I'm just beginning to understand what I don't know about Africa. So I'm a long way from an African expert, but there are lots of African experts in this room and we rely upon them. As I travel about, I often hear some wonderful African sayings or proverbs. And I learned one which I believe suits U.S. Africa Command just perfectly. And it says, quite simply, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We at U.S. Africa Command choose to go far. And we choose to go together with our African partners and hand with our interagency colleagues. Again, to Admiral Rondeau and all at the NDU here, thanks for allowing me to join you this morning. Thank you very much, and I would welcome your questions.